Do you know what the cooling fan filter is on an Xtool P3? Well, I didn't, and I had to find out the hard way. So if you've got an Xtool P3 and you didn't happen to hear about or learn about the cooling fan filter, you might want to stick around and find out why it could be important. Next up on Masten Made. I'm Ben, the Amputated Medic. Thanks for joining me today. And I had an interesting experience with my Xtool P3. I got it in October when it first went out for sale, like many of you guys did. And you might have not heard about a certain thing that I ran into in a big way. So I got an order to cut several of these clear acrylic panels, and I had figured out my settings and I was cutting them, and as I was going I had to keep increasing my power and decreasing the speed to be able to get them to cut. And finally they got to the point where they just would not cut, and my P3 kept getting hotter and hotter. And I thought that was because I had been increasing the power and lowering the speed. So I even let it cool down a couple times. And I even got an error message that came up on my screen. But like many people, or at least like some guys, sorry guys, throwing us under the bus, we don't read the directions. We don't need directions. And finally I thought to myself, well, first of all, finally, the laser just stopped cutting, and it was really hot, and I thought, uh-oh, something happened. I had like rust dust all over. So I stopped it and I thought maybe I should read that error message that was on my screen. And it said it was an overheating problem with the cooling fan. And it said to check the cooling fan filter and see if it was dirty. And I'm like, cooling fan filter. So I'm reading it on Xtool support, and I'm like, well, I have no idea what that is. So I went to my P3, and I did the thing where I pulled off my plate and I pulled out my lens, and there was dust everywhere, and it broke now. But when I got it, it was intact as a circle, but I had lasered a hole right through my lens. And you might be able to see that right there. You can see like where the hole is and how it burned through the glass. And that's where all my dust came from. And I am like, oh my gosh, I just broke my laser. And I'm like, how in the world did that happen? And why did it happen? So I knew that I could get more lenses. And I read through my instructions of where the air filter fan was. And I discovered it's pretty dirty. So if you have never heard about or seen your air filter fan, and another thing is, I will tell you, this cart, while it's kind of expensive, and I've heard you can buy cheaper ones on like Harbor Freight or Amazon, but this thing is a lifesaver because you saw how easily I turned my P3 to be able to get to the back. But right here on this back panel, this pops off. And here is your fire suppressant CO2 canister. And right up above it, in this hole right here, is a filter. And Xtool has a pack of these things, because I got online and ordered one, bought a pack. They come in a pack of 5. They're $25. This is what it looks like when it's new. This is what it's supposed to look like. And this is what mine looks like. So I clean my laser, try to do it about every couple of weeks or so, depending on how busy I am. And had no idea that existed and that this has to be replaced. You can try to blow it off. I was in the middle of a clear acrylic cutting job. So I was scrambling. So I was using this thing and trying to get through my order. But that is what it's supposed to look like. And it just fits up in here. There's actually like a brace. But you just kind of slide it up in here, and it's not easy to do. Got to get it pretty flat. And it'll push up in there just like that. And I don't even feel like I got it in there good because it's kind of loose. Let me try it again. And another problem I have is I got really fat fingers. And so it's tough to get it up and in there. There we go. That feels a little more snug. And that's it. That's all there is to it. You put that up in there. You put the panel back on. And you are good to go. Let me make sure I get this in here the right way. Gotta get it in the right way. I was doing it in reverse. And that's it. Go from this to this. So I want to share how amazing the maker community is. So this happened on a night that I was cutting these, and thankfully the order didn't have to be done that night, but I was panicking. I knew that I could call up Xtool or go through their tech support online, and I submitted a ticket, and their process was great. But I knew that for them to send me another lens, it was going to take probably a week. And I'm like, man, I can't sit on this a week, and I got to get this done. And so I reached out to the laser engraving community that I follow on Facebook, that I've learned on Facebook. I have learned so much on Facebook on the laser engraving groups. And I went to a conference up in Michigan. So I contacted Blake Sanborn from the Michigan Maker Summit up in Michigan, and I also contacted a guy that I had met at that summit, who actually lives like 20 minutes from me, 20 minutes south. So I contacted both those guys. I told them my problem. I sent them a couple pictures of the lens and the inside of the internal piece of the lens. And I said, is there anyone that has an Xtool P3 lens that I could drive within a 2 to 3 hour radius and go buy it? Because I had to get this order done, and I should have bought some lenses ahead of time, and I knew that. And it's one of those things where I said, hey, I got to do it. And then when I went to do it, I forgot that I was like, hey, I got to buy these lenses, and it'd be like 11 o'clock at night. I'm getting ready to go to bed. And then the next day I'm like, I forgot. So crap. Then I come down to where I need a lens. I didn't have one. So now I do. I bought a couple S's. I bought a couple, an L, and I bought an M, plus Xtool sent me an M lens. So their support was great, but I needed a lens, and I needed it ASAP. And so I reached out to the guy that I had met south of me 20 minutes, and I reached out to Blake, and they both pointed me to the same guy, which was a guy I also met at the summit. and and he is active in the Facebook groups. So I knew of him. I talked to him at the Maker Summit. I messaged him. I told him my problem. He actually lived about 2.5 hours from me. I said, if you happen to have a lens, I will drive up tomorrow and buy it from you. And he did. He had an L lens. And so literally after work the next day, I drove the 2.5 hours north into Michigan, and I bought that lens from him, came back that evening, and literally in 24 hours, I was ready to go again. Although obviously I didn't come back that night and finish the acrylic, but the next day. So technically about 36 hours from that failure, I was back up and running. And I just want to give a shout out. I did the shout out on Facebook, but I just want to say that since I have gotten, I went to the Next Level conference last year. I went to the Michigan Maker Summit. I just signed up to go again this year. This laser engraving community is unbelievable. They are just incredible. I literally am making the same things they make. Obviously a little different ideas, but we're all making the same things. And there's a lot of laser engravers out there. But I will tell you what, when I went to the Next Level conference, I did not meet a competitor. Not the entire, there's probably 600 people there. I did not meet a competitor. And all I met was friends, people that became basically instant friends. They would explain everything they did. They would show me pictures. I'm like, oh, how'd you do that? I did this, I did that. Go to this website, take this design, take this idea. They were amazing. And literally the Next Level conference, it was probably the best conference that I've ever been to. And Michigan Maker Summit, which was again 2.5 hours away from me, for a local summit, was one of the best I've ever been to. It was awesome. So I wanted to just share my story. I wanted to share how this happened to me. In case it would happen to you, go buy a 5-pack of these on the Xtool website, 25 bucks. You want to have some of these around. When you have some extra money, buy an extra lens. I would buy at least one extra lens of each letter, L, M, and S, or whichever one you use. Maybe a couple extra if you use, like, say, M the most, and have those on hand for when something happens. So that's just a quick story, a quick account of something that I experienced with my P3. And if you have any comments or suggestions or thoughts, put them down in the comments. If I remember, I'll put a link to those. Well, it's just xtool.com, but I'll put that down in the description. And if you're local to the Midwest, maybe I'll see you up at the Maker Conference. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and take care.